Hello, welcome to Board with Paint. Today I'll be showing you how to paint the Bruxa from the Witcher Old World board game. I've already prepped and primed the miniature in gray, so let's get started. We'll begin by painting all the skin with Bugman's Glow from Citadel. I say all the skin, but because she's not wearing anything, this is everything but the hair. For the chopped logs on the base, I'm using Dryad Bark just for the bark side of the logs. Here I'm going around trying to pick out the rounded side of each of the individual pieces of wood. The barrel and the wagon wheel are both getting a coat of Mournfang Brown. For the large piece of wood that the Bruxa is hanging from, I'm using English uniform just to differentiate it from the other wood on the miniature. You can also use this for the wooden decking that the piece of wood is sitting on. And now for the inside of the chopped firewood, I'm painting it with Zandri Dust. Next, we'll give the Bruxa's hair a base coat of black-gray. We'll paint the dirt on the rest of the base with German Camo black-brown from Vallejo model color. Now we'll get out our Abaddon Black and paint the metal straps that are going around the barrels, and we'll also use this to paint the edge of the base. Once that's dry, we'll use Iraqi Sand and apply a dry brush over the entire base, including the piece of wood that the Bruxa is hanging from. This is going to bring out all those textures and apply a little bit of highlighting so we don't have to go and pick out anything ourselves. Now we'll apply some washes, starting with Nuln Oil on the dirt part of the base. Here I'm getting a little pool of Nuln Oil inside each of the spokes of the wagon wheel. Next, we'll hit all of the wood with Agrax Earthshade. This includes all the firewood, the wooden post, the barrel, and the wagon wheel. Now returning to the black, I'm just filling in the inside of the Bruxa's eyes with this. We are going to give her some red glowing eyes, but they look very dark and sunken in the artwork. Next, I used silver gray to paint the fangs and teeth, but I was blocking it with my finger, sorry about that. Now I'm going and dotting the eyes in with some Flourescent Red. You'll want to apply 2 or 3 coats to get this to stand out. Now we'll start adding some highlights to the skin by mixing Harvester Flesh from Scalecolor into the Bugman's Glow base coat color. This is being applied over any parts of the skin that are facing upward. So you can see I'm starting here on her thigh and knee, getting her calf, the heel of her feet. Here I'm getting her other calf that's facing up. Obviously the upper parts of her arms will get this. You'll want to use very thin paint here and build the highlights up over several layers. That's how you'll get a nice transition from the dark to the light. You'll see me applying the paint without changing colors over the same area a few times. This is how we can build up intensity while still keeping the transitions between color very subtle. Here I'm adding a little bit more of the Harvester Flesh into the mix and applying it again to brighten those highlights. Once you feel like the skin highlights are at a good place, we can move on to highlighting the hair by mixing some silver gray in with the black gray. Here's another case where I had some trouble keeping things on camera, but I'm essentially putting the lighter color over the top in short, sharp strokes, just following the contour of the hair. We'll continue to brighten this up with more silver gray and apply it over slightly smaller areas of hair. We want to really focus the highlights because hair has a bit of a sheen to it, and we highlight it almost the way we'd highlight non-metallic metal. We're getting pretty close to pure silver gray here, and you notice I'm keeping the highlights quite small at this point. The hair is looking very stark and very gray right now, but we'll darken it again with the addition of some Nuln Oil later. Next, I'm going to apply some shading to the skin, and here I'm thinning down some Reikland Fleshshade with a couple drops of water so that we decrease the intensity a little bit. Now, we're not going to slather this on over all the skin. We're going to focus on the transition between the highlights and the darker areas. We'll want to shade the lower downward facing parts of the skin and also emphasize any of the creases and folds in the skin, like where her skin wrinkles up, where she bends her knee or bends her hip, and the crease in the armpit and between the fingers. Just anywhere where you want to add a little more contrast between the shadows and the highlights. And now, as I mentioned earlier, we'll be applying a generous amount of Nuln Oil over all of the hair. You can apply several coats of this after waiting for it to dry to darken the hair even further. Now for an optional detail that hopefully doesn't get me demonetized, I'm dotting in the nipples with dark Fleshtone from Vallejo Game Color. Then I'm mixing a lighter shade of this by adding a little bit of the Harvester Flesh, and we'll use this to give it a tiny bit of a highlight. And finally, since Bruxas are vampires, we're going to cover some parts of her with blood for the blood god. I'm just painting blood over her claws here, and also where she's grabbing onto the pillar. And I've also added a good bit of blood around her mouth and dripping down her face. If you don't have blood for the blood god, you can kind of simulate it if you get a bright red paint and mix a little bit of gloss varnish in with it, if you have that. And that completes the Bruxa. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video and want to see more like it, please subscribe to my channel, leave a like on the video, follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. All those things can really help the channel. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, happy painting.